You see, Jewish people are never an audience, they're competition. You know, ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of talk today about juvenile delinquency. In South Africa, they call them ducktails. In London, they're called teddy boys. In America, just plain juvenile delinquents, punks, bums. The one thing, though, that the psychologist has noticed is that Jewish people have the lowest amount of juvenile delinquency of any other ethnic group. Now, this is a very interesting thing. New York City is probably proudest of the fact that its Jewish population has the lowest rate of juvenile delinquency. If you stop to think why, you will see it's because there are close family ties. There is a very strong tie between husband, wife, and children. One day, one of the judges visited an elementary school in New York, and he was commenting to the class that the Jewish boys had the lowest rate of juvenile delinquency. He asked, does anybody in this class know why? One little Jewish boy raised his hand. He said, certainly, crime doesn't pay. There are many stories, of course, that Jewish people tell about husband-wife-child relationships. Probably the arguments that husband and wife have in Yiddish are the funniest of all. The words are very picturesque, and the meaning even more picturesque. For example, one woman came to her husband. She said, give me $10, please. He says, what do you mean, give you $10? What happened to the other $10 I gave you? Give me a Rechnung. Oh, she says, a Rechnung you want? I'll give you a Rechnung. $1 ahin, aher is $2. $1 nicht dir, nicht mehr ist $3. Wie geht nicht da weg, als $1 ist $4? Ede, man geht sich a dreh herum, geht da weg, noch $1 ist $5. Du kannst geben deine Mama $3, mag ich echt geben meine Mama $3, ist $8. $1 kränkt dir im Bauch ist $9. Dem $10, du willst wissen, wo es ist, weggegangen. A viele, als du wirst platzen, will nicht erzählen. You know, ladies and gentlemen, in Yiddish, a kränk im Bauch is only a form of expression. It's not really cursing. It's really devoid of all vulgarity. Let me illustrate. A Jewish lady sitting in a subway talking out loud. A klug zu ihm. A bruch zu ihm. Zusetzt den N.Y.C. Keuchel soll werden. The lady next to us says, lady, who are you talking about like that? She says, wegen mein Mann lang leben soll One mother was telling her neighbor, oh, did my daughter marry a wonderful fellow? She sleeps all day long. She served breakfast in bed. She goes shopping 3 o'clock. She plays cards, goes to the theater. Oh, what a wonderful fellow. But my son, a Bruch hat him getroffen. He has a wife who stays in bed all day long. She doesn't get up until late. She eats breakfast in bed. She plays cards, goes to the movies. That's a wife. If you study the history of the Jewish people, you'll find that divorce plays a very small role. Very small. The psychologist finds that the divorce rates among Jewish people are low, and he is naturally interested in knowing why. Although I do know of one couple who were married 30 years, of which only the first 5 years were gloriously happy. He was in the army. They came to a lawyer for a divorce. The lawyer says, listen, what do you want a divorce for? You must have loved her once. He says, certainly I loved her once. You should have seen her when I married her. She was a doll. Look at her now. Yiska doll. He says, divide everything 50-50, let's be finished. Which the lawyer did to a penny. 50-50. When it came to the children, they had 3 children. He says, you take 2, You take one. The husband said, why should I take one? Let her take one. I want two. They argued so long. The lawyer got so fed up. He says, listen, go home, stay married for another year, have another baby, and then come back. Then two for you, two for you. The husband said, very nice, very nice. But what if we should have twins? And then you sent us back for another year, we came back twins again? The wife looked at him. She said, ha! Mein größter Zwillingmacher. Als ich wollte sich auf ihn verlassen, wollte ich auf viele die 3 Kinder echt nicht gehabt. Jewish parents are inordinately proud of their children. They are eager to send them to school. They will scrimp and save so their son can go to college and graduate. One woman was bragging to her neighbor. She said, my son graduated cum laude. The other one said, mine graduated cum mitzoris. I talked to you before about the wise Jewish elders who would incorporate into Jewish tradition and religion the principles of health, because they wanted the Jews to remain healthy. Even, for example, the ritual known as the bris, which is a very joyous ritual in Jewish life. Anybody here know, what do you call the man who performs the ritual of the bris? Do you know what it is? That's right, a moil. A moil. I want to tell you about a man who was walking along the street in New York. He passed by a jewelry shop. He walked inside and he said to the owner, could you please repair my watch? He said, I'm sorry, I don't repair watches. He says, you don't repair watches? What do you do? He says, I'm a moil. He says, you're a moil? Then why do you put all those watches in the window? He says, well, what do you want me to put in the window? Let me tell you about the Jewish woman who is celebrating a Shimche. Either she was a Litvak, or sie hat sich verkleptet sein. Say a Simche. She says, my 2 sons are coming out of jail after 30 years. Her friend said, listen, I thought the judge sent them to 50 years in jail. She says, yes, but they got 20 years off for good behavior. She says, oh, what a blessing for a mother to have such 2 well-behaved sons. You will find, ladies and gentlemen, that Jewish humor is full of stories about children, education, bris, marriage, especially marriage. One man was talking to his friend. He says, what kind of wife do you have? Oh, he says, you should get married. Have I got a wonderful woman? A leb mafia. I come home for dinner. She sits down. She tells me a story. Then she tells me another story. Gesund soll sie sein. A leb mafia. Sie rät, and then she tells me another story, lang leben soll sie. Und sie rät, a Feueraffair, verbrennt soll sie werden. Sie rät, a Krankaffair. I think the Litvaks are sitting on this side, and the Galicianas on the other side. I must tell you about a sergeant in the army, a Jewish sergeant. The captain said, fire! Cease! The Litvak kept shooting. He says, what's the matter? Didn't you hear me? He says, sure I heard you. You said, cease, hab ich geschossen? This also happened in the army. I wonder if you know what tefillin are. It's like taking a Jewish blood pressure. One Jewish soldier was in a foxhole, very Orthodox Jew. He had the tefillin wrapped around his arms. The bullets were flying overhead. He kept rapping on the tefillin. The sergeant comes by. He says, how do you like that? Bullets flying. He decides to take his blood pressure.